Hello everyone, welcome back to the Plunder Den. In this week's episode, we're going to be making some fully playable terrain. So this is a project that I've kind of been working with, actually with FirelockGames. So they've asked me to build another Port Royal game table. And this one's going to be more of a cityscape, opposed to the other one had like a shoreline. So we want a street-to-street battle. Mike asked for more elevation on it. So I kind of wanted the gameplay to be able to go right through the top floors of the building, so you have multiple floors of the buildings, or you can go street level, you can go around the buildings. There'll be 3 streets actually on this game table, so there'll be lots of places to shoot from, lots of places to get around the game table, which will really make it a dynamic game. But the cool thing about this piece of terrain, it could be used for all sorts of games. It's really just a destroyed building. You could use it for bolt action. You could use it for, Blood and Valor. Other games, it could be even Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe a dragon destroyed this building. It can be used for all sorts of things. So, but I want to, show what I'm, the ideas behind it, why I came up with it in the first place. I really wanted to what I call a dollhouse kind of gameplay. So you have the buildings where you could take the roof off and you can play that way. And you can take the multiple levels off, right? The advantage of having it destroyed is I can have the back of the building kind of destroyed and opened up. And what I call a dollhouse, where you can just move pieces around the outside, makes it easy to play in. But I did want to make some aspects like a staircase that regular, FirelockGames Mini could fit on, opposed to, if you actually went to a 28 mil, the stairs would be quite small. But I want to incorporate that and make it look kind of realistic. I know obviously the stairs will be giant compared to what the miniature looks like, but it doesn't actually look that bad. So I'm going to show you that in a sec here. So the best thing that maybe to do is show you the finished project here. So this is only one building of this entire game table. It'll probably have about 6 or 7 different buildings. I'm planning on doing a destroyed church. There's of course a couple more residents here. This is more like a tavern or a bar, there'll be a magistrate's kind of administration kind of building. Planning on building kind of a market. So just kind of a whole cityscape and cobblestone roads again, and a couple dirt roads. Really kind of flush out that game table. So this is just one of those buildings. Now you can see I really destroyed the front of it. You can see right in here, there's actually a bar in there. And I'll flip it upside down, you can see play right in there. There's a stairwell. And I just wanted to kind of show you that aspect of it. Now, when it goes into here, this is actually, when it sits on the game table, it's actually an opening in the ground, so there'll be kind of a cavern in there, so you could actually travel underneath and come up there. So as another element, having the stairwell back here, you can actually have miniatures on here and shoot down the street. So all sorts of different places. I put a hole in the side of the wall here, so you can shoot up at the second level. There's a doorway here. This will actually connect to another building, and so that you can actually travel from building to building. So you can actually travel to this game table through the top levels and not even have to go to the street levels. If you didn't have to, you could travel on the top. And I made this staircase actually removable. So I just kind of wanted to show you the size and scale of it. So here's it, and this is a FirelockGames Mini here. Let's put them on there. And you can see it doesn't look that far off. It's a little big, but it fits perfectly on the base. And that way you can actually, you could fight on the staircase. So if you went down to this corner here, you got a nice little cubby. You could shoot around that corner there down the street and stuff. So that's kind of what I wanted to do, just add that, like I said, fully playable terrain. So I made this removable, so you can pull this staircase out. I think I almost lost it last time when I just about tipped it there. And it's just a piece you can add in here. As you can see, it's kind of wraps around, the staircase wraps around it and goes up to the next level. So that's kind of what I wanted to do there, and add that incorporated in there. So this is the inside. You can see there's the front of the bar. But really, you could have, like I said, play bolt action, have a tank in here or whatever hiding in this building. There's a nice big opening on it. So, and in this video, we're going to spend a lot more time on the painting portion of this. I had a lot of requests to spend more time on the painting, and you know, I usually just show you the colors sometimes, and I show you some of the painting techniques. So I did spend a lot more time on the actual painting portion of this video. I will show you how to craft most of this. There's a little bit less on the planning stage portion of it at the beginning, and more of just the construction and actual painting of this piece. I made it really sturdy because they're planning on using this for gameplay and you know, probably in cons and stuff like that, or tournaments, and so I made it really sturdy. A lot of wood in here, and I actually added a lot more Mod Podge and other stuff into it to make it sturdy. But we'll cover that all in the video. All right, if you guys like what we're doing here on the Plunder Den, make sure you smash that like button and consider subscribing to the Plunder Den and get first-hand information when I start these kind of projects. All right, everyone, let's get down to the table. Let's start painting and let's start crafting. So we're going to start off a little differently today. This is actually the game table I'm working on for FirelockGames. And I kind of just wanted to show you the layout. You can see there's like different, we got 3 main roads. And the 2 buildings that I'm kind of building right now are these 2. There's another back lane I'm just showing you there. And this is the building that I'm actually constructing on today's episode. So similar to before, I just kind of measured it out by how big I wanted each building. I know some of them are going to vary in how destroyed they are. But kind of laid that out. Here's some pictures of that destruction I'm talking about. Yeah, just I kind of really wanted to be very playable through all these buildings. So we've obviously skipped several steps. This is kind of really the skeleton bone of this building that we're constructing. I've done all the windows, and I've done this several times on this channel. Those are just a foam, dollar store foam board, framed walls, and insulation foam bricks. We got popsicle sticks. We got balsa wood. These are all the standard things I use to build my buildings. I definitely went to having shutters in the windows again. I like that detail. So this is just a quick brief through the construction of it. Like I said, I mentioned in the intro, I want to spend more time on the painting portion of it. But I want to kind of just show you what I was thinking. And really, I didn't know what I was doing. When I kind of build like that all the time. I just kind of build things as I go. I knew I had to build a staircase, and I kind of came up with the idea of using this kind of like a bar. Port Royal had a lot of bars and brothels, and I figured that this would be a perfect, you know, kind of staircase that I could do a wrap around a bar. And I went with a big staircase, like I mentioned, mainly to support the Firelock game minis. But you can put other size minis on there. My bolt action ones fit on there too, and same with my Blood and Valor ones. So these are just simple construction of balsa wood. Made a simple bar, just using some pieces of balsa wood. The stairwell is just insulation foam. I put a brick side on the back, and I kind of made shelvings on the one side to make it look like a bar. And I always planned in this beginning stage to have the stairs removable. I'm going to probably build for Firelock Games some ladders so they can alter the inside of these buildings too, so they have options of different. Maybe they don't want to put the whole bar in there. Maybe they want to have it open. But, you know, just give them options. So I knew I wanted to make a second floor. As I mentioned in the intro, I wanted to have a playable second floor through all these buildings. So that way you could actually battle through the second floors and not even have to get down to street level if you wanted to. So eventually this building will connect to another one. That's why there's an opening there, like a doorway. I'm going to have like a bridged area that connects to another building next to it. Kind of like what I showed you at the beginning, those 2 laid out areas. That's going to be one building. So I'm just kind of planning out different destruction, so kind of planning out where the floor is going to be. Obviously, I could make the boards go further forward. What I mean by that is so you can stick your hand in there. If I put them too long, you won't be able to stick your hand and move minis around in the bottom. And that's another reason why I made the staircase removable. If it's fully playable, you should be able to play through the entire piece. Now, the staircase might get a little bit in the way, even though I tried it out first several times to see if I can get my hand in there and get my minis moved around. I still can do it with the bar and the staircase in there. So I'm just showing you some details I added to those staircases. I added wooden planks, just to, I figured it would make it really detailed. I kind of did a broken shelf on it. This happened after an earthquake, and I put a couple of jars and cups left on there still, but most of it probably got swept away when the tsunami came through. And that's why there's a big rip through the front of the building. And this is obviously going to be sitting over top of like a crater, what I showed you on the game table. So you'll be able to walk up through the bottom of the building too. So it kind of an interesting aspect to it. It'll be kind of like a basement on top of a main floor and an upstairs. And then really it gives you options. You can shoot down the stairwell because your miniatures will fit on there. So again, really considering the interest of the game play in this piece, and not just sake of just building a building. I wanted to make it really playable. You can see I put a crack and hole up in the top area, so there's a place you can shoot out of there. So lots of options for shooting down at the street below. If you're behind those stairs, you can shoot down into the crevice or down the street as well. And I'm just highlighting that I'm going to be putting a partial roof on here. Now, what I talked about being a dollhouse style building, what I mean by that is you can play it through the back. So I don't have to, I can glue this top on because it won't be in the way. It adds to the overall aesthetic of the whole building. But it actually, it won't be in your way for gameplay. Having the entire back open. This is like Mordheim, more like they have all their buildings. A lot of people build those kind of constructed their buildings and they're all open on the back. I kind of wanted to go a little bit more that way. It would be easier for that gameplay going through the second floors. So I'm just showing you, I'm using the cardstock for the shingles. I've done this one, like I said, on the channel quite a bit too. And really, I just went into the garbage and found what I had. Actually, when I moved, I actually got rid of all my cardstock. And I got to the point where I needed some shingles, and I'm like, oh boy. So I had to go look through the trash, and I found some James there, chicken fingers, which is just perfect. I always put the shiny side down. Put your paper side up, only because it's easier to paint. It's a little harder to paint the shiny side. Now, of course, it's still going to be shown because on the bottom, but when I added that black craft paint and Mod Podge to it, it covered it, and it wasn't really a big deal. Now, I usually put the shingles on with the hot glue gun, just so it glues right away. I don't like to use white glue for this because it takes a little bit longer to dry, and they end up not looking straight, and I really just didn't like that look, so I hot glue them on. So all our pieces are fabricated for this particular building. Now, this is one building in that entire game table. I am going to do probably a series of videos. I want to do a destroyed church and like a magistrate building and a market and other things that I want to do for that whole structure. I figure if I'm going to build this game table, then maybe I can do a few of these on the channel with you guys. And you can see the building of this table. This will be the second Port Royal table for FirelockGames. And I'm just highlighting the fact that this will connect to a different building. And I'm just showing all the different features on it. So here's our, and I don't use Mod Podge very often, but this is going to be something that's going to be used for game demoing. So I really wanted to make it a lot more reinforced. So I probably added a lot more popsicle stick reinforcements on both sides of the walls than I normally would, only to add extra strengths. And then also I added the Mod Podge half and half with the black craft paint, the full card craft paint, which already hardens on its own. And I slap that on there too, so you got lots of strengths to this. Now, while I was doing this, I decided, the water is pouring through the bottom of this building. Maybe you grabbed a fishnet and hooked it onto the side of this building. So it kind of implies that the water spilled through the bottom of this building. And so I kind of wanted to add that detail in there into the destruction. So all these pieces are painted as well. And just to build up strength. Now, I do plan on gluing that bar in there at some point, but I'm going to paint it first. So we're going to start off with our real brown. And I'm going to show you a little bit more of how I lay that paint down. Normally, I usually skip this step, but I think I'm going to show you all the aspects of the paint portion of this video. So we're not going to show you the whole paint, but I'm going to show you exactly what I paint with it. So I got the real brown. I got a kind of a larger paintbrush. And I'll hit the shingles This is how I usually do it. I just pull the brush up on the shingles, and you can see it just leaves like somewhat of a highlight on there. Now, I actually go quite a bit of the brown on here, but you still want to keep a little bit of the black. Give those undertones, like I said, I like to paint layers and try to keep some of the colors I cover always through, so you get more of a natural look to it. So I'm just showing you I'm planning on doing the whole building. The whole building is going to get this real brown treatment highlighted in a few different areas. Now I am going to concentrate the paint in certain areas for weathering purposes. As far as the sides and the front of the building, I'm going to stick to basically just what I'm doing right now. And you can see it doesn't look like there's a lot of paint being added onto it. Yeah, I go over it a few times. I don't necessarily get it on the first step. I hate when I put too much paint on my brush, and it's a little harder to fix the problem. So this is how I start my weathering on the inside. I want to weather these planks. And I really highlight a lot of brown in there to lighten it up. So the paint's going to be a little thicker in these places where I'm weathering it. And if I want to do that on the walls, I'll do the same thing. But definitely on the planks that everybody's walking on. Now, I know the screen's keeping busy, blurry here. I keep getting too close to my hand. That's the problem. I gotta remember where my hand is, and it sometimes blurs out. But you can see what I'm doing and where I'm hitting things. And that's really gonna start the base of our weathering. All right, so the next color is bark brown, which is just a lighter brown. You can see this is what it looks like after I've added the real brown. You can see there's a lot more than what I was showing you originally because I just kept going over it and over it again. And similar to the real brown, we are going to do the same thing. We'll just pull up on the shingles. And now I'm going to start to highlight a little bit of the center of these walls. So it makes it a little bit lighter in the center of it. Eventually, that's, I'm going to kind of build up the layers on that. I kind of decided I'm going to do a two-tone building. And I just kind of looked at some different references. And I kind of like the idea of doing a two-tone building opposed to just a single color. I've done several buildings now, and I wanted to do something different, something that would stand out on the table. So again, same as the real brown, I'm using the bark brown to lighten those areas of weathering. And you can see this is how I just pull the brush on like that. I know I do kind of a dry brush somewhat, but some of it's not really. I'm more rubbing the paint in. And I think I've mentioned that before. I kind of rub the paint into and you can only do that if you were using wood. So of course, there's a lot of popsicle sticks and coffee stir sticks here. And that makes it easier for me to do that kind of technique. If I didn't have that, it wouldn't be able to do that on foam. You're able to lighten it a little bit in the center, but it's easier when you do it on the popsicle sticks like that. And you can see I'm just lightening it up. Like I said, I hit it on a few different on the sides and the walls. But look at just a little bit of bark brown is a little bit lighter than the real brown, how it starts adding highlights on it right away. Now, before I stuck those shutters onto the windows, I did use my hobby knife to skewer them and, give it a little bit of texture. So it actually comes out when you brush it on like that. So now we're going to the Pablo, which is really going to highlight things. And I kind of decided I was going to do kind of like a orange/green tile on top of the roof and make it a little interesting. So there'll be some orange edges with a little bit of some matte greens. That's how I decided I was going to do my shingles. So I'm going to use some of this Pablo on there. And I'm going to highlight all the different areas. Probably won't use as much of this on the floor of the weathered area. I'm going to go to a yellow ochre as I usually do, yellow ochre or real brown mixture. But the outside of the building and the walls, I am going to highlight with this Pablo. And that give us a nice look on the outside of the walls. But again, I'm going to put lots of color on the walls here because we're going to go with this two-tone. I decided I was going to go with a blue/white on the top, blue on the bottom. And again, I just saw pictures of houses and stuff like that in the Caribbean, which is probably more of a modern look to the houses. But I like that look, so I figured to do something a little different in this piece. All right, so now we're going to move to a smaller brush, and we're going to move into our camel. We're going to start working on our stonework now. So I have all those highlights I put on with the 3 browns and as a black undertone. And you can see I'm just using this small brush. And this is just a ratty small brush. It used to have a square end on it, but I've used it for this for quite some time. But it actually kind of works good for just rubbing in a little bit of camel on there. I've been using it less and less, so I like the darker stones more than the lighter stones. I do plan on adding some mummy robe to the top of it, so that'll also lighten it up somewhat. But I just wanted to show you further this technique. Mainly, I sometimes brush by this. I did do that stone painting realistic stone video, but I've changed somewhat my technique from there, and that's still a really good way of painting stone. But I'm actually starting to use smaller brushes and even putting more detail. Now this takes a lot longer to do it this way, but I like the look when you're finished it. So that's pretty much how much camel I added onto it, but I slowly added it and it just gives it a more natural stone look. So I decided to also put that color in where the walls are broken and it's kind of the ends of the timbers or boards or trim that's been snapped on the building. I added a little bit to the shingles, a little bit to the shutters here as well. But not really as much on the netting. I'm going to kind of add some greens to the netting. But you can see anywhere there was essentially a broken piece of wood and broken stone, I've kind of added this color as the end. Of course, I can add speed paints and other things to alter it. It's always nicer to add a speed paint to a lighter color than it is to a darker color. It's more apparent and you're able to bring out that color more. So this is the real brown yellow ochre mixture I was talking about. I just on a palette, it's on the right hand. I don't show you that, but I just mixed those two colors, half and half. You get kind of a darker yellow, and that's what I always start off with. And I just kind of pull them on the planks like this. Sometimes I use a round dry brush and kind of really work it into the wood. It just depends on what kind of look I'm going for. I kind of just felt like doing it this way this time, but both techniques would work. This technique is a little easier because of the way I've constructed the building. It's a little more challenging to paint it than it would be if I had a dry brush. It would be hard to get it really to rub that top floor since I've installed the roof. I would be able to do the base, but this works just as fine, and it'll get you the look you're looking for. So you can see I actually put some paint on my brush and then I just keep rubbing it until I don't get any more yellow on that. I've rubbed it all onto the boards, and then you get kind of lighter and darker boards that way. And I just keep going back and forth until I hit everything. So I tried to do the bar, all the wood planking on the stairs, the shutters, the trim. I kind of hit a whole bunch of areas with that same color. And then I moved into just using yellow ochre on its own. So this is how I always highlight things. I always start into the center, so the edges are already dark, and then I just kind of hit the center like that with a small brush, and then just kind of adds a nice little highlight to everything. It makes it look a little bit more weathered in the center, but it highlights those pieces. So that's what I do around the entire building, and shutters, trim, all that stuff. All these wooden extra pieces I've added. And you can see it's not really a dry brush, it's a rub. See, I'm like rubbing it in there. That's why you use your garbage brushes, don't use your good ones. Because you're going to shred them by doing this technique. They get really bad. But I got a whole jar full of brushes that are at this state. And they're good for a while, and then they get to the point where they're just so wild that you just have to chuck them. They're no good for even doing what I'm doing right now. You want to somewhat hold its shape. But again, see how I can just rub it in there? You get a nice little glow to that, to those boards that I've already painted. So we're going to do the same thing with the planks inside as well. Again, making it lighter into center, And we've already built this up from the very beginning. So we started with that real brown. We added more in there than the bark brown. And now we're moving into this, the yellow ochre real brown mixture, and now straight yellow ochre to highlight these areas. And if you put the yellow on, you figure it's too bright, remember this paint dries darker. Don't panic too much. It's not going to look as bright as when I originally put it on. It dries darker. And if it doesn't, you can always go back to going to the real brown and yellow ochre and cover it up and start over and try it again. You might get some actually interesting plays when you do that. But you really want to try to do it this way. Just add a little bit of paint to the brush and just keep rubbing it out. So I'm just showing you I'm planning on doing everything with that same kind of highlight technique. So I didn't show you all of it, but you can see in the background all the yellow ochre I've added. So I'm going to use a new color called Tundra Taupe. It's a speed paint by Army Painter. I really like this color. I actually picked up some of it when I was at Sentry Box in Calgary, and I saw that color. And I like these muted greens and muddy greens. And if you remember the previous video where I made that enhanced terrain and I made the muddy water, I kind of like these murky colors. I'm kind of building up to wanting to do some kind of swamp terrain. Would be really cool, and these colors are definitely going to be in there. But this muted taupe here is going to be perfect for my shingles. So I'm going to keep a little bit of the bright orange there. And you can see I'm just using a really small brush now. And the reason why I'm using that brush, because it gives the illusion that there's some texture on these. Remember, this is just cardboard that I cut out. So to make it look like there's some texture on there, I'm using this skinny brush so it leaves lines on it. Similar to if you were painting on hairs on an animal or something like that. Just kind of add a little bit of texture on it. And we're going to cover this with a few other colors, but I just wanted to show you that technique and what it looks like. You see how you got a little bit of orange glow in that green? I really like this look on the shingles. Sand Golem is one of my new favorite speed paint colors. I use this for all sorts of things. You can highlight, go even further inside the main floor, or I've added some to these, I guess, bindings on the shutters here and some of the framing in the windows. Just to offset it from the other colors. It's kind of in the yellow family, that Sand Golem, but because there's yellow there already, it kind of gives it a dark yellow look, but it offsets from the yellow that's there already, so I'm just kind of adding that detail in there. I also hit some of that on the bar top, on the top of the bar, just to give it a few different looking colored planks. And I've done that before. Some people have asked, well, how do you get all these different colored planks on there? Usually it's done with speed paints. I really like to use speed paints more for terrain than actually for miniatures. I use speed paint a little bit for my miniatures, but I kind of actually really like using it on terrain. So I'm putting it on the top of the bar right now. And you can see it just gives it a nice kind of more rich color on top of the colors that we've already added. So that speed paints are really good for that. And remember, if you put it on a lighter color, you'll get a better effect. Darker colors are really harder to see when you add the speed paints on top of it. So this is Army Green. It's, again, another one of those muted greens I was talking about. That's a very good one. I've used that in that bark I painted on the channel. That's one of my favorite colors too. And I've been using this for my netting now. So I got all those dark browns and stuff and blacks and stuff underneath, but I'm going to just highlight with this Army Green. And that's going to start changing this netting into a green, but I'm eventually going to have a brighter green over top, but I'm just going to highlight it right now with this muted green. And we're probably going to carry this up over into the shingles as well, because it's a little bit brighter than that taupe I just put up there earlier. So we're going to go back over, and we're going to hit this Army Green in here as well. Now, the Army Green is a regular Army Painter paint. It's one of them from the original lines. It's not a Fanatic paint or a speed paint. It's just one of their regular colors. There probably is a Fanatic version of it. I haven't got it yet, so I'll have to look into that. Maybe I should give a review of that. I'm kind of on the fence on the Fanatics. I like some of them, but actually I kind of don't like some of the colors, and some of the like the reds are really faded. They're almost like pinky yellow or something. They're not as bright as the originals, and I might be crazy for that saying that, because they say that they have so much more pigment in them, and I would say 90% of the paints, that is 100% true. They are nicer looking. They come out way smoother and they're easier to apply. So I really do like the Fanatic paints, but I found that some of them are, like the Pure Red, for example, that color. I don't like the Fanatic version, to be honest. I like the old version better. But that's just me. I'm sure I'm just crazy. But I find I like the other one better. So this is Commando Green. This is another bright green that I've highlighted over top. And this is really going to give it that, sell it as that fish netting look to it. It's going to give it a murky water look, and I really wanted to add that on there as well. So this is hardened leather. This is something that I use to highlight my stonework, add some more browns into it, around the crevices and stuff like that. And I kind of just slap it on with a brush like this, drag it down. Again, we're going to be covering it with mummy robe and other things, so you just want to have that color underneath. And I just kind of had it on some of the edges and stuff like that, so it looks like some grime and it's got in there. Especially after a tsunami, I'm sure there'd be all sorts of stuff in there. I had contemplated actually just caking on using some textured mud paints on here, which maybe I will do on some of the other buildings. But I kind of just decided to go with some grime instead of the mud texture paints. I just like this look to it, so it's more of a stylized choice, I guess. But this works good for this highlighting stuff like this. So, and I'm going in between the planks here. I'm going to go hit this over into the these as well, those shutters. You put that brown in between the two boards. It just implies there's a little bit of grime between it. And sometimes when you're doing that rubbing technique, you can sometimes rub away where the actual break in the board is, because you painted it all the way through. So it's good to throw that in, that speed paint in the middle there. Now this is a Fanatic paint that I really do love, is the ultramarine blue. And I mixed it with some Commando green, and you get kind of a, this is almost kind of like a necromancer cloak, but it's a little bit brighter. It's got more of a blue. So I really wanted to start with a darker blue and kind of build up lighter. We're really going to add a lot of different variations of blue and some whites in here to build up these walls. I kind of wanted the, as I mentioned, a two-tone building, and had the blues built up on the bottom. So I'm using that small brush, and I'm just kind of working from the center out to the edges. It's already a little bit brighter in the center because of those highlights we've already added in from the base colors that we put down. So I'm just showing you using that Commando green mixed with ultramarine, and also I'm using the ultramarine to mix with mummy robe. That's the color I'm planning on highlighting a lot of things, the stonework and in here. And really I'm just pulling it on here. That's with this is even another smaller brush, and again, use your ratty brushes for this. Don't use your good brushes, because this is a rubbing technique and it does wreck these brushes. But you can get quite a few buildings done with them before you have to throw the brush out. It's no good anymore. So now I'm showing you just mummy robe. Now this is after I've added all that blue, and I kind of just pulled that white from the top, mixed into the mummy robe, and you got kind of a lighter blue on the top. And then the very top, I'm going to add the mummy robe right to it, and highlight down the bottom there. Like I wanted to have a blue-white. And we're going to come back with some darker blues back in here and go back in with brighter whites. And we're going to add some more speed paints and some weathering colors in here as well. But for now, we're just kind of making kind of a light underneath the trim here and leading to a darker blue down to the corners here. And you can see I'm just touching it a little bit. There's very little paint on the brush. And I'm also doing the stonework, and you can see how I'm adding that to the stones, and not a whole lot at all. And this gives you a chance to, if you have any, if you added too much of that hardened leather, this gives you an opportunity to kind of work that out a little bit with your mummy robe. But it really gives a good natural stone look to your stones. So again, highlighting from the center, working your way out. And I'm just kind of going back and forth between all the things that I do. So I do the darker white up top because I'm trying to highlight the center. And then while I took the paint off my brush, I went down to the stonework because now I have less paint on my brush. I can keep working on the stone. And that's kind of how I work. I go back and forth, uh, using all the paint I can, so I'm not wasting any paint. So you're kind of highlighting the darker paint up top and then using the less paint on your brush down below for the stonework. So this is a Grim Black speed paint. Comes off kind of like a gray, actually. It's not... I've actually painted whole uniforms on some of my Blood and Crown archers with this black, and it comes out pretty good. But it's also good for, making staining in the corner. Agrax Earth Shader is going to be used as well, but this is also good to add some grays in there too. So you can add it to some of your stonework down here. Keep adding different colors. You can see how many different colors we got going down there in the stonework. It's looking great. That's the way I want the stone to look. I like all those different plays down there. So I've added the gray and all those colors that we talked about to these pieces. I kind of sometimes forget about these two pieces here to mention it to you guys, but as we've been going along, I've been kind of adding the same colors to the stonework and woodwork in here as well. So I'm painting those two pieces as I'm going on. And you can see I got a pile of minis down there. I always like to paint a few minis every time I'm building a new piece of terrain. That way, when I take some photos, I got some newer miniatures that I've not showcased before. So now I'm going to some Agrax Earth Shader, and we're going to hit a few different areas throughout the... wherever I figure I should put some more grime. You can see I sometimes use my finger in there just to smudge it. I actually paint this like I'm painting a canvas or I'm doing a drawing. That's kind of how I like to paint my terrain. It's not nearly as clear cut sometimes. I kind of... I guess I really did want to show you guys that. There's a lot of people that have asked for this just to see the technique that I do when I do painting, and it's a lot of little brush strokes. I hope I'm not making this more complicated, making it more difficult for people. I just wanted to show you all the different brush strokes that I do to actually create this weathering in here. So that Agrax Earth Shader, I have another smaller brush. You can see I've been going through brushes like crazy. And this one's actually, it's a thicker brush, so there's a lot more hairs on the end. It's still one of my damaged brushes, and I use it just for this. But why I do that is because it absorbs more of that contrast paint, especially Agrax Earth Shader. And you're able to rub it in. And I'm just hitting between the planks, in edges, around some of the stones, some of the wall areas, and just really hitting that grime in there. So now this is Malignant Green, and I've used this color before. This is great for adding any kind of plant life you think is growing, algae or especially on docks and stuff like that. But I figured this fish netting crashed in here. It probably grabbed a bunch of this and it's dripping into these stones. So I'm going to add that in there as well. And overall, this is Port Royal. There would be a lot of kind of stuff growing on the base of the buildings just because of the proximity to the ocean. There would be a lot of that kind of algae growing on things. So I just kind of wanted to add that as well on there, that detail. So then I finally got my tacky glue out, and I only glued the bar portion in. So I put the staircase in so I can see where the bar goes. But I wanted to make sure the staircase was loose. Now, I didn't mention it, but the staircase is built so it clicks underneath where the floor is above. So actually it sits kind of snug in there. I know when in the intro I was showing you and it almost fell out, but I didn't actually click it in properly there. But it clicks in so you can tip that, move it around, and it won't fall out. But I want it to be removable, so if you had to play back there, you could play. So I'm just kind of showing you the finished product. Everything's painted now. I'm really happy with all the different weathering, the different multi-tones on the flooring. The blue tones we added. I don't have a building like that yet as well. So it really came out really good. And I really like that green and orange kind of tiled roof. So yeah, it's something different, something different that I want all my buildings to look kind of different. They don't look all the same. I'll try to stay different from colors I haven't done before. And the challenge is I got several other buildings to build in this town, so it's going to be interesting. So I kind of laid it out on my island mat here, and just kind of made my own mini Port Royal. I figured this is just a peninsula that survived. Actually, that island map by Cigar Box Battle would actually be great for Port Royal. It's like the portion that didn't sink into the ocean, and the way this mat looks, it actually looks like it's partially sunken. It's actually a really good mat. It's a island mat, and it works good for if you're trying to do a Port Royal game as well. So I figured it was a good feature on that. So I'm just showing you all the details on where the miniatures fit and all the different shooting areas on here, the different angles you can shoot down the street, like all the different options. And once I've got it down, connected to the other buildings, of course you can travel from building to building, and that'll add another level to the overall gameplay of the game, and it'll be exciting having all those other options. All right, so that's pretty much a wrap on this project. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it was more of a painting tutorial, but I have been getting a lot of requests for a full-on painting one. So I hope this was helpful. If you guys have any questions, please put it in the comments below. And also let me know if you want to see more painting tutorials. I really do enjoy the painting aspect of the terrain. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching, and I will see you in the next one.